Hello and welcome to News 9. I'm Varghese Abraham. First up, let's take a look at some of the important stories of the day. 13 Israeli hostages, including women and children, are set to be released from Gaza in the first batch during a 4-day truce that has been brokered by Qatar. Now, the ceasefire covers North and South Gaza, with Egypt facilitating aid and Israel releasing Palestinian prisoners. The hope is to establish a lasting truce amid the recent deadly conflict that has taken place in the region.
13 Israeli women and children are expected to be freed from Gaza on Friday as part of a 4-day ceasefire deal between Hamas and Israel. Qatar, which helped broker the agreement, said they would be the first batch of hostages released. Here's Foreign Ministry spokesman Majed Al-Ansari.
They will be 13 in number, all women and children, and those hostages who are from the same families will be put together within the same patch. Obviously, every day will include a number of civilians, as agreed, to total 50 within the 4 days.
The first pause in 7 weeks of war involves a comprehensive ceasefire in North and South Gaza, though fighting raged on in the hours leading up to it. According to Egypt, which also served as a mediator in the deal, 200 aid trucks will be allowed into the Hamas-ruled enclave daily, along with deliveries of gas and diesel. Israel is expected to release 150 Palestinian women and minors in jail there during the ceasefire, and has said it would extend the truce by 1 day for every extra 10 captives freed from Gaza.
Our aim is for this deal to end with a lasting truce.
Meanwhile, Qatar says it hopes the 4 days of exchanges will buy the two sides time to figure out a lasting truce to put an end to the deadly violence.
Amid clashes on Lebanon's border with Israel, around 50,000 people have been displaced, according to the United Nations. Now, the region faces economic struggles aggravated by the influx of refugees, leading to tensions among locals. Many refugees encountering hostility and limited job opportunities are considering leaving for Europe or taking to other countries. Take a look.
Rose Rostam has had her life uprooted before. This time, she's among the some 50,000 people the UN says have been displaced because of clashes on Lebanon's border with Israel.
On October 7th, a war started between Gaza and Israel. Hezbollah started firing at Israel, and we live near the border in a village called Burj al-Malouk. Then the shells began to land very close. And we have children. Of course, they get very scared. We couldn't stay in the house and hear the shelling and firing. We were frightened. We then went to Sidon, to my brother-in-law's house.
It marks the third time conflict has driven her from her home. During Lebanon's civil war in the 1980s, she moved twice. The first time because of Israeli bombardment. The second was to flee Palestinian militant attacks. Lebanon is a nation of displaced peoples. The influx of Palestinians following the creation of Israel in 1948 helped spark the Lebanese Civil War decades later. In 2006, hundreds of thousands were displaced during the Israel and Hezbollah war. Then came Syria's civil war in 2011, which led to the arrival of 1.5 million refugees. That, combined with the 2019 financial collapse, which destroyed Lebanon's economy, has left many without an income or job. The combination of economic despair and the influx of refugees is sparking tension with locals. Meanwhile, many refugees, faced with growing hostility and low work prospects, are eyeing Europe and other countries. Rostam says her family used to be comfortable when her husband sold car parts. But he was forced to close up shop when the fighting began. Now she checks the news to see if her house was among the latest hit by rockets.
Larnaca in Cyprus is all set to become a hub for international aid for Gaza. Cypriot officials have confirmed efforts for a maritime aid corridor from the island's southern port of Larnaca to the Gaza Strip are on the homestretch. Israel has agreed to the plan, but technical issues remain to be solved.
This is the heart of a plan by the Cypriot government to send international aid to Gaza. Larnaca port here is just under 400 kilometers away. The Cypriot government says Israel will not oppose the plan, as long as its officials can check what's loaded onto ships bound for Gaza.
Now we've proceeded from the political to the technical part of it. So we've seen that they support politically the implementation, the realization of the corridor, and now we're at the part where technical issues are being resolved.
Getting the aid ships out to sea should be simple enough. The biggest issue would be how to unload them in Gaza. The port there has not been fully functional since Israel's blockade from 2007, and Israel has bombed the area since the October 7th terror attack. The Cypriots' plan could build a temporary floating port just off the coast. They say this could dramatically speed up the delivery of aid. One ship can carry 500 times what a truck can. In Nicosia, the Cypriot Red Cross says it's in communication with the government and can move aid like this quickly.
We are ready at any time, and we have such warehouses smaller in all the districts. So we're ready at any time within the hour.
This command centre next to Larnaca Airport coordinates between 21 countries when it comes to evacuations from crisis zones. It's been operational since 2016. It's set to play a major role in the humanitarian aid corridor plans.
Certain precondition is to have a different security environment to be able to proceed with the implementation of this idea. But of course we are in contact parallelly to those preparations with all stakeholders involved.
France, Greece and the Netherlands are all keen to get aid moving here quickly.
Meanwhile, Argentinian hostages' families appeal for a rescue mediation by Argentinian government in its wits' end to rescue its 21 citizens in Gaza, including 4 minors who are being held by Hamas for more than a month. Take a look at how the Argentinian government is finding it difficult, especially with regards to the pressures coming in from the hostages' family in Argentina.
Micaela Rudaev is a teacher and volunteer at a Jewish community center in Buenos Aires. She decorates the synagogue and organizes events. Her cousin is among the Argentine nationals kidnapped by Hamas a month ago. She last saw him on a family visit to Israel 23 years ago, but they kept in close touch. His name is Leo Rudev. He's 61 years old.
It's a nightmare, isn't it? There are nights I can't sleep. At first I was desperate. On October 7th, he was the first person I sent messages to. I knew he would answer me because he works in security. I said, he has to answer me. But he was the only one who didn't respond.
10-month-old baby Kfir Bibas was also abducted, the youngest of 4 Argentine children and teenagers being held by Hamas. Argentina has the largest Jewish community in Latin America. Micaela is demanding that the Israeli and Argentine governments take action to secure the release of her cousin and the others.
2 weeks ago, the president of Israel promised my uncle they would do everything possible to find my cousin. But it's been a month now and nobody knows anything. So I'm demanding that the Argentine government, the president and the foreign minister please do something instead of just standing behind a microphone.
Earlier this month, President Alberto Fernandez and his foreign minister met with representatives of Jewish organizations. Among them, the delegation of Argentine Jewish associations. Its vice president said they handed over a 58,000-strong petition demanding the release of the hostages. Hopes were raised more than 2 weeks ago after Egypt and Qatar mediated to secure the release of 2 Israeli and 2 American women.
We demand the president exhaust all means at his disposal to make this happen through the United Nations and the International Red Cross. It would be a good thing to make Argentina's voice heard by the countries that are mediating.
Journalist Jaime Rosenberg is covering the case for one of the country's largest daily newspapers, La Nación.
Realistically, what the Argentine government can do is very limited. It made contact with the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank. There is no Argentine diplomatic representation in Gaza, and at the same time it reached out to two countries, Egypt and Qatar, and the Red Cross, which could mediate in some way.
And so Michaela and other relatives of hostages wait and hope for news of their loved ones.
Well, in Dublin, a knife attack left 5 injured, including 3 young children, which triggered riots. The 40-year-old suspect is in custody and authorities haven't ruled out any motive over this particular attack, including whether it was terror-related. Anti-immigrant protesters clashed with the police, setting fires and also looting the place.
Rioting broke out in Dublin on Thursday after a knife attack. Anti-immigrant protesters clashed with riot police, burned down cars and buses, and looted shops. That's after a 40-year-old man went on a stabbing spree in the early afternoon that injured 5 people, among them 3 young children, including a 5-year-old girl who had serious injuries. The 40-year-old man remains in custody, though police would not comment on his nationality. The government says all lines of inquiry related to the attack remained open, contradicting a senior officer who earlier told reporters it wasn't terror-related. Later on Thursday, groups of anti-immigration protesters broke through the police barrier at the scene. Some shouted, "Get them out," and the riot spiraled out of control. Hundreds of officers had to be deployed to restore public order. Public transport was suspended, and patients advised not to travel to a nearby maternity hospital unless absolutely necessary. Ireland's Justice Minister said thugs and criminals were using the knife attack to sow division. Such rioting is almost unprecedented in Dublin. There are no far-right parties or politicians elected to Parliament, but small anti-immigrant protests have grown in the last year. Net migration to Ireland surged to its highest levels on record last year, after the outbreak of the Russo-Ukraine war.
In Nepal, clashes erupted between protesters and police on Thursday. The demonstrators were divided into 2 groups with different demands. One group, the youth organization Nepal, linked to the main opposition Communist Party of Nepal, called for the removal of the current government led by Prachanda, citing corruption concerns. On the other side, the pro-monarchy Durga Prasad group sought to reinstate Nepal as a Hindu state. The clashes between these 2 groups led to injuries, and at least 30 people, including 5 policemen, were reportedly hurt. Riot police used batons and tear gas to disperse the protesters. The youth organizations Nepal staged their protest rally near the Tribhuvan International Airport in Tinkune area, while the Durga Prasad group organized their demonstrations in the Balku area on the outskirts of Kathmandu. Both groups expressed dissatisfaction with the governments that have been in power since the monarchy was abolished about 15 years ago. They claim these governments failed to fulfill any commitments to develop Nepal, which remains one of the poorest countries globally. Before OpenAI, CEO Sam Altman's 4 days in exile, several staff researchers had warned that the board would have a powerful artificial intelligence discovery that they said could threaten humanity. Take a look.
There's another twist in the OpenAI saga involving a possible breakthrough in artificial intelligence and a staff letter warning the board about it before CEO Sam Altman's brief firing. That's according to people familiar with the matter, who told Reuters the researchers' letter raised concerns that the discovery could threaten humanity. The sources said this was a key development ahead of Altman's sudden Friday ouster from the company that made the powerful chatbot ChatGPT. Altman was reinstalled late Tuesday after hundreds of employees threatened to quit. Reuters was unable to review the letter, and OpenAI declined to comment on it. According to one of the sources, the project involved is called QStar, and some internally believed progress made on QStar could be a breakthrough in the startup's search for superintelligence, also known as artificial general intelligence. OpenAI defines AGI as AI systems that surpass humans in most economically valuable tasks. Reuters could not independently verify the capabilities of Q-Star. Altman has previously spoken of concerns over superintelligent machines that are shared by many computer scientists.
My worst fears are that we, the field, the technology, the industry, cause significant harm to the world.
The board had vaguely cited a lack of candor and the need to defend OpenAI's mission to develop AI that benefits humanity in firing Altman. Before the issue of the letter came to light, Cornell University's Tech Policy Institute director Sarah Krebs said the saga will dog the company until more answers are given.
What was sort of the grave misstep, and should we be concerned? Should investors be concerned? Should governments be concerned? Should citizens be concerned? So without a bit more transparency, I do think those will be some unanswered questions that will linger.
Krebs said the new board installed alongside Altman's return as CEO appears to be more aligned with his vision of accelerating the development of AI, while, she says, also ensuring safeguards are in place.
Finland has announced plans to close nearly all entry points along its border with Russia, aiming to curb the influx of asylum seekers from the neighboring country. The decision comes amid escalating tensions between the two nations, particularly following Finland's recent entry into NATO earlier this year. Take a look.
Finland said it will close all crossing points on its border with Russia, except for the northernmost one, from midnight Friday. That's in a bid to stop a flow of asylum seekers, which Helsinki said was instigated by Russia as a retaliation for Finland's closer defense ties with the U.S. Helsinki angered Moscow when it joined the NATO military alliance in April following Russia's invasion of Ukraine. Finland's Foreign Minister Elina Valtonen.
Russia is effectively instrumentalizing people, not only letting people through to the Finnish border with invalid documents or missing documents, which has not been the case before, but also we have evidence that Russia is effectively bringing those people to the border and organizing transport as well.
Since the beginning of the month, more than 600 people without valid travel documents to the European Union have come to Finland via Russia. That prompted Helsinki to shut several crossings and accuse Moscow of funneling migrants, a charge the Kremlin denies. This video obtained by Reuters shows several groups of people near the Russian-Finnish frontier walking in direction of the border. Reuters could not verify when the video was filmed. The EU's border agency Frontex said it plans to deploy more officers and equipment to Finland as soon as next week in response to a request from Helsinki. All the crossings except the Raja-Jooseppi checkpoint will be shut until December 23rd. Finns wanting to enter Russia will also be barred. The Finnish government said it will also seek to amend legislation that prevents it from closing the entire border. The Kremlin earlier said it had launched a formal protest over the partial border closure, accusing Finland of being Russophobic.
The European Union has promised Ukraine 1 million rounds of artillery by March 2024, but as it stands, the bloc has delivered less than a third of that supply. Ammunition manufacturers say that the problem starts way before it gets to them.
The challenges of weapons manufacturing may have come as an unpleasant surprise for politicians who promised Ukraine 1 million rounds of ammunition by next March.
It's not so that you can just drive a truck up to a defense company and just tell them how much you want and leave the same day. It's not like that.
Norway's Nammo is one of the world's leading suppliers of ammunition, with 27 manufacturing facilities across a dozen countries.
These steel tubes, still hot from the forging process, will become some of those coveted 155mm shells here at Nammo's Raufoss manufacturing facility. But what producers explain is that they can't fill orders they haven't received. And so the responsibility for this dramatic scale-up in output being expected doesn't start here.
While the number of contracts for ammunition has increased, that alone isn't enough to boost production to the levels that are needed. There are other obstacles hindering large-scale orders and joint procurement. For example, while NATO countries primarily use 155mm caliber guns and ammunition, there are 14 variations of these artillery shells because each country produces them with slight differences. Some industry leaders are calling for the standardization of defense products, even though these different specifications are seen as favoring manufacturers. But the CEO of Finland's Patria Group, Esa Rautalinko, says those days should be over.
The market is very protectionist, not just in Europe. I think it's a global phenomenon. And what the industry needs to realize is that if we are just sub-optimizing our own production capabilities, so things will not change fast enough. If we have different equipment that are not standardized enough, it means that it's a logistical nightmare.
NATO's top military official urges more cohesion at the political level so supplies get to where they're needed at the tactical level.
We have to agree that we have to stop doing that, because a soldier in the field is not interested whether the artillery round comes from factory A, B or C in whatever country. They don't care. They just want the ammunition to be able to hit the target.
NAMO says it has more than tripled production in some areas over the last 2 years, and it's expanding its facilities. But what happens if demand drops dramatically after the end of the war in Ukraine? NAMO CEO Morten Brandtzæg is suggesting 10 to 15-year production contracts to deal with such future uncertainty.
I think we have to share the risk, because it's also very important that these defense companies, that they are kind of profitable and that we can reinvest in R&D.
Brandtzæg won't offer a prediction on whether there's any way some 700,000 more rounds of ammunition can be sent to Ukraine by March. He'll only say it will take his company much longer than that just to fill the orders it already has.
Following North Korea's announcement of deploying stronger armed forces and new weapons on its border with the South, South Korea has chosen to partially suspend an inter-Korean agreement. This decision comes in response to North Korea's successful launch of its inaugural military spy satellite into orbit. Additionally, South Korea plans to recommence frontline aerial surveillance of North Korea. While South Korea's military has verified the satellite's entry into orbit, it underscores the necessity for additional time to confirm its functionality.
North Korea said on Thursday it would scrap a military deal with the South and deploy more troops along their shared border. That's after Seoul suspended part of a 2018 pact with the North a day earlier, in protest over Pyongyang's launch of a spy satellite earlier this week. North Korea's defense ministry said in a statement, quote, "From now on, our army will never be bound by the September 19th North-South military agreement," and quote, "We will withdraw the military steps taken to prevent military tension and conflict in all spheres, including ground, sea, and air, and deploy more powerful armed forces and new type military hardware in the region along the military demarcation line." The statement came hours after Pyongyang fired a ballistic missile toward the sea on Wednesday. South Korea said that launch appeared to have failed. Tuesday's satellite launch was North Korea's third attempt this year, after 2 failures. It came after North Korea's leader, Kim Jong-un, made a rare trip to Russia, during which Russian President Vladimir Putin vowed deeper cooperation, including helping Pyongyang build satellites. Seoul says it's likely Russia helped in technical aspects of the launch, which drew condemnation worldwide for flouting UN resolutions that bar Pyongyang from tech that could be used in ballistic missile programs. Seoul believes the satellite has entered orbit, but said it needs more time to work out if it was functional. In response to the launch, South Korean Prime Minister Hang Duck-soo announced partially suspending the 919 agreement, an inter-Korean military pact signed in 2018, until, quote, "mutual trust is restored between the two Koreas." One of the concrete steps is immediately resuming military observation of the North's forces in border areas. The U.S. says Seoul's suspension of the deal was a, quote, "prudent and restrained response," citing Pyongyang's, quote, "failure to adhere to the agreement."
Kenya charts a new economic course as President William Ruto announces plans to privatize 35 state-owned companies. Get more details on this bold move and its potential implications.
The Kenyan government said on Thursday that it is poised to privatize 35 state companies. President William Ruto said it is looking at a further 100 firms after enacting a law last month to cut down on bureaucracy. Ruto did not name the companies. The law signed by Ruto last month calls for privatization to be done through methods including IPOs and the sale of shares through public tendering. Kenya last privatized a state-owned company in 2008 when it issued an IPO for 25% of the shares in telecommunications firm Safaricom. In 2009, the cabinet approved a list of 26 firms to privatize, including the Kenyan Pipeline Company, Kenya Electricity Generating Company, and banks, but no action has yet been taken. Kenya is grappling with acute liquidity challenges caused by uncertainty over its ability to access funding from financial markets before a $2 billion Euro bond matures next June.
Earlier this month, Europe's most powerful telescope, Euclid, beamed back its first images to Earth, and last week the EU held a summit to plan Europe's next steps exploring outer space. The European Space Agency hopes it's the beginning of an ambitious new era.
When it comes to unlocking the secrets of space, the European Space Agency is in pole position. This year it launched not one but two high-profile research missions. The first is Euclid. Its job is to measure exactly how the universe expanded 10 billion years ago. Recently, its first images were published. The job of the space probe Dupes is to investigate the possibility of extraterrestrial life on Jupiter's icy moons. Then there's Copernicus, the most ambitious program to observe planet Earth. In the future, ESA wants to do more than deliver satellite data. It also wants to use artificial intelligence to predict the consequences of environmental pollution and destruction. Another goal, to be a pioneer in the prevention of space junk. The plan is to extend the lifespan of ESA satellites and, after their mission, let them burn up without leaving a trace in the atmosphere. In 2026, the agency wants to catch a 112-kilogram piece of debris from a rocket for the first time. In manned space travel, however, ESA has never outgrown the role of junior partner for NASA. It currently supplies the so-called service module for the US's Orion capsule, along with important building blocks for a planned space station that will orbit the moon. In exchange, European astronauts will likely be able to join NASA's missions to the moon. 3 missions are currently under discussion. A huge problem for ESA is rockets. The agency is currently dependent on providers like SpaceX, as its own launch systems aren't ready yet. Ariane 6 is expected to lift off in 2024 at the earliest, 4 years behind schedule.
Yemen is facing a severe water crisis as the country grapples with drought. To manage it, people are using old but reliable ways to collect rainwater. They are building dams, ponds and reservoirs using traditional methods passed down over generations. For centuries, Yemenis have used these techniques to deal with the dry weather, capturing rainwater effectively. Now, local communities and non-governmental organizations are teaming up to implement projects that help rural Yemenis access clean water for their daily needs. It's a joint effort to tackle the challenges posed by the water crisis in the country.
Yemen is one of the world's most water-stressed countries. For 10-year-old Ali Al-Qataimi, that means riding a donkey to fetch well water every day. This area has been hit hard by climate change-induced drought. But to cope, people in some parts of the country are making use of traditional techniques to capture and store water. Those methods have helped people with the region's arid climate for centuries. In this district, about 25 miles west of the capital, a local resident says 10,000 people rely on this dam, as well as livestock. A water supply point in town has really helped, according to this resident. He says it's eased the burden on everyone in the community. They're often tired from fetching water. According to the United Nations, about 14.5 million people in Yemen do not have access to safe drinking water and reliable sanitation. There are ponds and reservoirs scattered around the country, and others being built, like this cistern. It's under construction thanks to help from an NGO. The project manager says people cannot rely on groundwater in the mountainous region, so they need to harvest rainwater from seasonal rains instead. This local community leader describes it as a gift that will keep water drinkable. But climate change and rapid population growth are always looming in the background, putting pressure on already limited resources.
Peru's latest government inventory revealed a staggering 56% loss of its tropical glaciers in the past 60 years due to climate change. These glaciers, accounting to 68% of the world's tropical glaciers, are rapidly melting, forming new mountain lagoons that pose a flooding risk. The National Institute of Research of Mountain Glaciers and Ecosystems highlighted this concerning trend using satellite imagery up to 2020. Let's listen into what the experts have to say on this.
Se ha reducido a 1.050 kilómetros cuadrados las áreas glaciares en las 18 cordilleras del país. Eso significa que hemos perdido en este periodo de 58 años un 56% de áreas glaciares. 4 cordilleras que han perdido de manera muy rápida, casi alrededor de los 80-90% o más del 90% de sus áreas glaciares, como el caso de la cordillera Chila.
Western Australia is battling a severe heat wave and intense bushfires. Authorities caution that regaining control might take several days. Over 150 firefighters are battling the blaze. Hundreds of families have been evacuated. Emergency warnings have been issued for some regions of Perth as well. Residents in the path of the fire have been advised to immediately seek shelter away from the fire. Let's hear what the authorities had to say on this matter.
At this stage, 10 homes have been lost, along with 4 sheds and numerous vehicles, including caravans. There's also damage to a range of infrastructure, including power poles. The forecast for today is unforgiving. The temperature is expected to hit a maximum of 40 degrees, and the winds continue to be strong. Today will be a difficult day for everybody involved, but again, I want to thank all of those who have done so much to keep damage to a minimum.
Oscar-winning actor Jamie Foxx is being sued for allegedly groping a woman at Manhattan rooftop bar in 2015. A lawsuit filed in New York on Wednesday identifies the plaintiff only as Jane Doe. It says the sexual assault occurred after she and her friend approached the film star and had their pictures taken with him. Take a look.
Oscar-winning actor Jamie Foxx is being sued for allegedly groping a woman at a Manhattan rooftop bar in 2015. A lawsuit filed in New York on Wednesday identifies the plaintiff only as Jane Doe. It says the sexual assault occurred after she and a friend approached the film star and had their pictures taken with him. Foxx's representatives did not immediately respond to requests for comment. The complaint says Foxx began groping the woman and putting his hands under her clothes against her will, until her friend found the two of them and interrupted the encounter. Jane Doe is seeking unspecified damages. Foxx is best known for his Academy Award-winning portrayal of singer Ray Charles in the 2004 film Ray. The actor is one of the latest high-profile celebrities accused of sexual wrongdoing in a recent series of lawsuits filed under the Adult Survivors Act. The New York state law allows victims of sexual abuse to sue alleged abusers even if the statutes of limitations have run out. The deadline for the special one-year window for such complaints expires at the end of this month.
In Pakistan's far north, a villager in Hunza Valley is on a mission to fight for the future of the village. The area is increasingly under threat from unstable lakes formed by the melting of glacier. Here's a report.
In Pakistan's mountainous far north, 51-year-old Tariq Jamil is measuring the ice movements on a steep slope of glacier. His village, Hassanabad, is an hour's hike downstream, and the 200 families living there are increasingly under threat from unstable lakes formed by the melting glacier. Himalayan glaciers are on track to lose up to 75% of their ice by the century's end, and Jamil is on a mission to protect his village and their way of life. Jamil's village is part of the UN-backed GLOF 2 project, which helps communities downstream of melting glaciers adapt. Since 2017, weather stations and rainfall measuring sensors have been installed. When glacial lakes overfill or their banks become unsound, they burst, sparking deadly floods that washed out bridges and buildings and wipe out fertile land. The project has deployed speakers in villages to communicate warnings and infrastructure like stone and wire barriers that slow flood water. Jamil's village has had close calls from floods. Over the past 3 years, residents repeatedly evacuated just in time to avoid loss of life.
The first time we had GLOF, there was great fear among the local people because they did not know what to do, where to go. Gradually, ever since the attention of the government and NGOs turned towards us, I have been working in the community for 4 to 5 years now in connection with the issue. I have learned a lot myself and have also tried to make the people aware about the flood, what they should do before the flood, what to do during the flood, what the responsibilities of the community are.
The threat is all too familiar for Zahra Ramzan, who lives just a few hours away in Chalt village. She lost her 11-year-old son last year when he was swept away by a torrent of black water rushing down the valley. Residents said the village has had little information about the risk. Ramzan now gets nervous whenever there is heavy rain or flooding, refusing to allow her surviving children out of her sight.
Whenever there is a storm or any other natural disaster, I get very worried that someone else's children may get into the same type of accident. If my children are outside somewhere and the weather gets bad, I become extremely tense and agitated.
According to a study, 15 million people worldwide are at risk of glacial lake flooding, with 2 million of them in Pakistan. Some 800,000 people in Pakistan live within about 9 miles of a glacier. With leaders gathering for the UN's COP28 climate summit, pressure is ramping up on wealthy countries to fulfill promises to help developing nations.
Dominica sets course to establish the world's inaugural sperm whale sanctuary, a groundbreaking initiative poised to safeguard these majestic creatures and their ocean habitat.
The small island nation of Dominica plans to create the world's first sanctuary for sperm whales. It will cover about 350 square miles. That's larger than the island itself. While the enormous mammals can be found around the world, Dominica is one of the few places where they can be seen year-round. The refuge won't just help protect the vulnerable species, it could also help fight climate change.
Sperm whales are part of the climate resilience machine of Dominica.
That's Enrique Sala, founder of National Geographic's Pristine Seas initiative.
The sperm whale numbers in Dominica have been declining steadily over the last 20 years because of a combination of human threats that affect whales not only here, but elsewhere, like ship strikes, noise pollution, plastic waste, and entanglement with fishing gear.
The refuge would be off Dominica's western side, along critical feeding and nursing grounds. It also presents a strategy to mitigate the impacts of climate change through carbon sequestration.
Sperm whales do these long dives, 45 minutes to an hour, all the way down to 1,000 meters in total darkness, hunting giant squid. They come back to the surface, they breathe, they sleep, they rest, and they defecate. And the whale poop is full of nutrients from the deep, from those squid, full in iron and nitrogen that helps to fertilize the surface waters, which in turn creates blooms of plankton, these microscopic algae that live on the surface. And when the plankton dies, much of it sinks with the carbon in it to the deep sea.
The 250 sperm whales in Dominica's waters could sequester approximately the equivalent of an 18,000-acre forest in the U.S. That's according to Dr. Shane Garrow, National Geographic explorer and founder of the Dominica Sperm Whale Project, who was also scientific advisor into the establishment of the sanctuary.
And so in many ways, that whale pump of eating in the deep and pooping at the surface drives carbon sequestration, and they're fighting climate change on our behalf.
Garrow says the sanctuary not only aims to protect the whales, but contributes to Dominica's blue economy through tourism. They hope the revenue will offset the direct costs of managing and enforcing the whale reserve.
Well, the trend of TikTok dupes is sweeping the holiday shopping scene, captivating consumers far and wide. Watch this report to uncover the latest buzz and the products captivating TikTok users.
Dupes are becoming one of the biggest shopping trends among Gen Z and millennials. Short for duplicates, dupes are essentially less pricey replicas of higher-priced products, like Skims underwear or Decker's Ugg boots. The trend has become popular largely thanks to TikTok, with influencers accepting commissions to promote similar products from value retailers.
It was a great opportunity to buy additional pieces that looked well, fit well, and not at the cost.
New York-based product marketer Lauren McGuinness is a fan of Lululemon, but she is increasingly supplementing her activewear with cheaper dupes she gets on Amazon. One of her favourites are CRZ Yoga's high-waisted yoga pants, which resemble Lululemon's popular Align leggings. The price difference? $98 versus $32.
I found the stitching to be very similar and the fabric quality very close in quality. I'm never going to fully replace the brands that I love and that for athleisure, but it is nice to be able to have filler and try also different colors and patterns and matching sets that you might not have gotten on Lululemon because you weren't really willing to take the splurge for something that might be more trend.
CRZ Yoga, owned by a Hong Kong trading company, sells on average more than 88,000 pairs of the leggings a month. That's according to data from e-commerce analytics firm Jungle Scout. The company did not respond to a request for comment. Fakes, also called faux or knockoffs, have been around for a long time. But now, everyone is talking about dupes. And the growing demand for these look-alike products, coupled with a drop in spending due to inflation, is cutting into sales of some big-name products. Experts say it's difficult to quantify how much market share they may steal from the original products this holiday season. Most at risk are brand-name perfumes, cosmetics, and mid-tier clothing and footwear.
I think dupes have become popular, one, because cost of living in a lot of cities in the U.S., and even abroad, but in the U.S. particularly, have risen. But I also think that we are looking for ways to save.
Dupes have become so widely accepted, particularly among younger consumers, that McGuinness says she would consider gifting them to friends. E-commerce platforms Amazon, eBay, Shopify and Etsy have helped dupe sales accelerate by making it easy to compare prices on similar goods. A spokesperson for premium footwear maker Birkenstock said it takes the issue of brand piracy very seriously. But experts say dupe sellers have grown increasingly skilled at avoiding brands' logos and other design features that could infringe existing patents or copyrights. An Amazon spokesperson said the company does not allow its sellers to use the words dupe, fake or faux connected to a brand's name when describing their products on the site. But multiple products available on Amazon appear to violate that policy. As for the shoppers, up to 49% of them have been disappointed with dupes purchased online. That's according to a survey conducted by consumer review platform Trustpilot, across the US, UK and Italy.
Well, TikTok takes center stage for a protest in Nepal as it bans sparks a fervent response from the country's TikTokers. Take a look.
Nepali TikToker Manjita Manandhar was so successful on TikTok, she hired a videographer and a manager for her clients. Manandhar earned about $1,500 a month making TikTok content for restaurants, hotels and brands. But now the ban has hit her business hard.
A few days back, TikTok ban भयो क्या अब मेरो business त पुरै half भयो.
A few days back, TikTok was banned. My business has been completely halved. I had invested and scaled my business thinking of both Instagram and TikTok. Also, I have everything planned 1 month in advance, and clients will promise that their posts will make it on these platforms within certain timeframes. All promises are made accordingly. All planning has been made accordingly. All of which is now in shambles. Now what do I tell my clients?
Nepal's government is the latest to ban the app, which is owned by China-based ByteDance. Several countries have raised concerns over its proximity to the Chinese government and its hold over user data. Many Nepalis, however, said the ban has cut off a source of income and shut down a forum for free speech. Nirjal Karki is one of dozens in capital Kathmandu who protested the decision.
We have gathered here because the Nepal government has banned TikTok. Our friends, relatives, parents, youths have all gathered here to protest the ban imposed by the government on TikTok.
Others filed petitions against the decision at the Supreme Court. The court has asked the government to provide its reasons in writing for the ban before a hearing on December the 5th. In a letter to Nepal's telecom regulator, TikTok said it routinely addresses content and behaviour that violate its community guidelines.
Moving on to Hollywood, award-winning actor Leonardo DiCaprio highlights the enduring relevance of Martin Scorsese's Killers of the Flower Moon in today's world.
We felt an incredible responsibility, and we felt that it was an immense gift to try to tell the story in the right way.
When this money started coming, we should have known it came with something else. They're like buzzards circling our people. We're still warriors.
This is the one that's over. This is over. Yes, it's over. And what we can do is do 3, 2, 1.
I've never seen Marty more obsessed than I have on this movie. He spent 7-8 months right there in Osage country in Oklahoma, and it's all he thought about. This happened 100 years ago, but the more we've been talking about this is as relevant a story today as it was back then, and not only focused on natives in the United States, but around the world. You know, this is a microcosm for a much larger dialogue that still exists.
To kill these white men who killed my family. I need you here.
I am right here.
It is a celebration of representation, but it is also a very triggering, traumatic thing to sit and bear witness to. And what I kept hearing, especially from Osage women, is that the power of them being able to see it together and talk about it together afterward. They feel the film is vital, and they're so happy that this story is out. All of the Osage people that worked on it, that spoke for it on the carpet, feel, you know, more or less the same.
I think now seeing this film, hopefully that gives other Indigenous actors and actresses the ability and maybe the prerogative to say no to something that they might feel that they're stereotyped in, because this is such a bold and authentic and true story and true to Indigenous characters. So
rock enthusiasts and collectors are in for a treat as a collection of artifacts from ZZ Toppy's Dusty Hill is set to captivate bidders at an upcoming auction. Take a look.
It's a fun, whimsical auction, incredible items, because that's what Dusty Hill and ZZ Top represented. They changed the way we listen to music. They made it so colourful, so entertaining, and that's what we're celebrating with this auction. I laugh when I say that because it's a fur-lined guitar. It's a Dean guitar created specially for Billy Gibbons and Dusty Hill of ZZ Top. The sheepskin came from Scotland. It was their idea to create this guitar. Of course, it was used in the Legs video in 1984. They wore a gadget around their waist with the guitar would spin. So people look at that video to see the spin. So that's really cool. That's 80 to 120,000 for that guitar.
Well, that's all in this edition of the Bulletin. Stay tuned to News 9 for further updates.
Hello everyone, Namaskar. I'm music composer Ricky Cage. 3-time Grammy Award winner and